What I wanted to do today is just briefly walk through some images of meiosis and then talk in a formal way about a couple of the sketches you guys did on your own about the sex chromosomes and figuring out how sex chromosome meiosis informs us about the sex ratio at birth, the 50-50 male-female sex ratio. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about when things go awry during meiosis or mitosis, when things don't divide properly or separate properly. There's some really interesting things that can result. And so we're going to walk through some of that today. If there's sufficient time, we might begin our discussion of Mendelian inheritance, which is the inheritance patterns that result from meiosis, sort of how traits are passed on from generation to generation. But we may not have time to do that today, and so we'll do that on Monday, and then do the human genetics lab activities then as well. Okay, so that's the plan for today. So, how would you describe meiosis? What is it? Tell me as if you're telling your family around the dinner table what meiosis is. What's that? The replication of chromosomes is involved in meiosis. All right, it's part of it. You know, so one of our goals in this whole thing is not to have you guys go away with this super sophisticated, complex language to talk about all this stuff, but just have like a gut feeling and an understanding of what goes on, be able to articulate that to other people.
So this is dividing of the cell's DNA into 4 different ones, basically?
So it's the taking one cell's DNA, mixing it up, and separating it out into 4 cells that each have one copy of all the information, right? So those are the key elements of meiosis. It's taking the DNA of one cell, scrambling it up, and then partitioning it out into 4 different cells. And so the first step before that, of course, is you have to replicate the DNA. So you replicate it, you scramble it, you partition it, and that's meiosis. All right. So don't forget that mitosis takes one diploid cell and makes 2 identical diploid cells. Meiosis takes one diploid cell and makes 4 non-identical haploid cells. At least in us. Now, in us, when we talk about mitosis, we're talking about diploid cells copying themselves to make 2 identical diploid cells. But in some organisms, in fact, many organisms, haploid cells also go through mitosis to make identical haploid cells. Right, now, it doesn't really go on in us, so we don't have to worry about it so much. But in a lot of organisms, it's actually a big part of their life cycle, is mitotic division of haploid cells. Okay, so if you look up at this image here, based on our discussion of diploid numbers and haploid numbers, for the cell that's illustrated here, what do you think the diploid number is in this case? So don't say it out loud. Right? Take a look at it. See if you can figure out what I'm even asking. And then discuss with your neighbors what you think. Do you think the cells that are illustrated here, what's their 2n number? Take a look at it and discuss.